Hello, this is Bishop Joe Hannafelt coming to you from Grand Island. And during this Lenten season, I thought it would be helpful to reflect upon the 7 deadly sins, or the capital sins, and a virtue that remedies them. And so to begin with, as we begin the Lenten season, I thought we'd consider pride. Pride is really basically disordered self-love. It's really what was the fall of the devil, was his sin of pride. St. Gregory the Great says that pride is the mother of all the capital sins. It touches all the other ones, touch into the pride in some way. But the sting of pride I think about sometimes just with regard to our sensitivity. And so there is not such an instrument as something to measure our pride, but you might consider in your own life, prayerfully in this week, how it is that you respond to both things that offend you and things that compliment you. And what is your reaction to offenses? And is there the sting of pride when your feelings get hurt, you might say? Or also there are times when you receive compliments and you take those on in a way that just, in a sense, you just rehearse them over and over again. In the sense that compliments feel so good. Certainly we all know that's the truth, but is there a certain pride, in a sense, by believing that you deserve the compliments that you receive? We might pray, especially in this Lenten season, or in this week, especially when we reflect on pride, for the grace to really know our interior thoughts, feelings, and desires, to really acknowledge to ourselves those times that are, in fact, prideful in the way in which we hear things. But what's more important, I think, in this regard is what is the remedy for pride. And of course, St. Thomas Aquinas says that virtues are the remedy for all our vices. The virtue of humility, then, and the virtue of gratitude help us in that regard. Because humility is having a true regard for myself. Not to think of myself worse than I am or better than I am, but to see myself as God sees me, as accurately as possible. To be humble in many ways is simply to let our light shine, as the Gospel of Matthew says. To be ourself and to recognize that God created us with certain gifts, and to use them gives Him first and foremost glory. So, in a sense, not to be puffed up by our own goodness, but simply to let our light shine. To, in a sense, humbly be ourselves before God and before others. Gratitude is also very important because it helps us give credit to God and not take credit to ourselves. When we look at the idea of how blessed we are, if the starting point is, how has God blessed me today? And if we do this every day, then we can offer gratitude back to the Lord, which begins to chip away at the pride that might exist in any of our lives and all our hearts. When we acknowledge the Lord God as the gift, or the giver of all good gifts, the gifts that we have received, our own gifts and talents, in a sense, that begins to curb pride already. Gratitude gives credit, you might say, where credit is due. And therefore, it puts the Lord ahead of ourselves. As St. John the Baptist said, He must increase and I must decrease. But gratitude also says to the giver of all our gifts, bring it on. It says to the Lord, thank you, and it acknowledges Him as the source of all our good. And in this way, you can see how the virtue of gratitude begins to curb the sin of pride. And in that regard, it puts us in that humble place where we need to live it out of our relationship with the Lord. So this week, I might just encourage you to ask the Lord to see what patterns there are in your life with regard to humility or pride. To ask especially St. Joseph, who was so humble, to be able to intercede for you where there are prideful patterns in your life. And really practice this week the virtue of gratitude, expressing to God and to others simple ways, for the simplest of things, your heartfelt thanks for those blessings. Together this week, let us discover how prideful we might be, but not to get discouraged, because we know the remedy. The remedy of true humility and gratitude will take us beyond ourselves and point our vision back to the Lord, the giver of all good gifts.